157 nations of people recognized. Why a recognized state cannot be attacked, why the killing must stop, and why Palestine must be free. The fact. As of 2025, the state of Palestine is recognized as a sovereign state by 157 of the 193 UN member states, about 81% of UN members, and by the Holy See as well. That is not symbolism. It is political and legal weight. An overwhelming majority of the world has said, in one way or another, that Palestine is a state entitled to the rights, protections, and respect that states enjoy under international law. Why recognition matters, and why a recognized state cannot be attacked. Recognition creates legal standing. States recognized by other nations gain access to treaties, diplomatic relations, and, crucially, the protections of international humanitarian law and human rights law. Those protections exist to stop the unchecked use of force against civilians and to prevent crimes such as mass killings, ethnic cleansing, forcible transfer, and collective punishment. When 157 countries recognize a polity as a state, they are also affirming that it holds those basic protections. The laws are not optional. The Geneva Conventions, the UN Charter, and core human rights instruments bind states and occupiers. Occupation does not grant license to expel, kill, or starve a population. International recognition strengthens Palestine's legal claims in courts and international bodies, and strengthens the duty of other states to act to stop breaches of the law. That is why recognition matters beyond the diplomatic gesture. It supports accountability. A global majority gives moral and political force. When most of the world recognizes a state, it becomes harder to argue that military aggression or collective punishment is a matter of purely local policy. It is an affront to the international order. That majority can and must translate recognition into concrete protections. Embargoes on weapons used to commit abuses, diplomatic isolation of those who commit war crimes, referral to investigative and judicial bodies, humanitarian corridors, and protective measures. Why Palestine must be free. Not revenge, but justice and safety. Freedom here means an end to occupation, an end to policies that remove people from their homes, and an end to indiscriminate civilian killing. Freedom means the right to move, to govern, to live without siege and bombardment. It means reparations, restitution, and a credible process of justice and reconciliation for crimes committed. Freedom means a two-state future grounded in law and dignity, or another just political settlement agreed by the people who live there. The world has recognized Palestine because most states judge it to be the only way to secure dignity, safety, and peaceful coexistence. Why Israel should be retired from Palestinian land, framed legally and morally. I will use strong nonviolent language. The international consensus that recognizes Palestine is also a rejection of permanent territorial dispossession. The legitimate remedies under international law for unlawful occupation and settlement include withdrawal, restitution, compensation, and return of property. Where those remedies are resisted, the international community has, in the past and in doctrine, tools at its disposal. Sanctions, international prosecutions, diplomatic pressure, and, crucially, protective measures for civilians. The language of retirement can be translated into concrete demands. Cessation of settler expansion, withdrawal from occupied areas as required by law, restoration of Palestinian control over their territory, and accountability for crimes. What the world that recognizes Palestine must do, practical, urgent, lawful. Immediately demand and enforce humanitarian protections, safe corridors, medical evacuations, and unfettered aid. Use diplomatic weight. The 157 nations that recognize Palestine can coordinate to impose travel bans on perpetrators, freeze assets used to commit abuses, halt arms transfers that facilitate violations, and pursue resolutions in international fora. Trigger legal accountability, evidence collection, referrals to the ICC or special tribunals, and sanctions are tools to stop and deter atrocities. Support Palestinian state institutions so that recognition is not only symbolic, but builds capacity for governance, justice, and protection. Insist on a political settlement that ends occupation, guarantees security for all peoples in the region, returns rights and land where the law requires, and ensures equal protection under the law. A final, direct message. A people recognized by 157 nations is not an object of policy. It is a subject of law and of history. Recognition is not a trinket to be admired. It is a responsibility. The world that recognizes Palestine owes it protection, not with threats alone, but with immediate humanitarian action, coherent legal pressure, and an unflinching demand for the end of mass suffering. To free Palestine in 2025 is to translate recognition into protection, accountability, and the immediate end of indiscriminate killing. That is justice. Anything less is betrayal.